Mr. Mayor, we are live.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the council meeting of Wednesday, March 27th, 2024. And before we read the land acknowledgement, I just want to make a couple of housekeeping matters. Please be assured that you're to silence your cell phones while in chamber. And members of the public, when you come to the podium to speak during open session, could you please adjust the mic so that you can be clearly heard in the live streaming recordings. So the Township of Oro-Medonte acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people, an ancestral territory of the Huron-Wendat. The Anishinaabe include the Odawa, the Ojibwe, the Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. It continues today as the home for diverse Indigenous peoples, including the historic Métis community in Penetangwishing. The Anishinaabe people continue to have an enduring relationship with this land, specifically the Chippewas of Rama First Nations, the Chippewa Tri-Council, and the Williams Treaties First Nation. The Huron-Wendat Nation also continues to pay respect and protect their ancestors and heritage on this land. We honor the Indigenous history and culture that have thrived for millennia in this territory and the treaties that bind us together as partners in the spirit of a shared, sustainable, and prosperous future. We are all treaty people. Our commitment begins with acknowledging the truth so that we can move forward together towards reconciliation. May we have a motion to adopt the agenda, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Lavoie, seconded by Young. Be it resolved that the agenda for the council meeting of Wednesday, March 27, 2024 be received and adopted.
All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. May we have a motion to go past 4 hours if necessary, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Shell, seconded by Hutchison. Be it resolved that Rule 14.20A, as per the procedural bylaw number 2023-043, be suspended in order to allow the meeting to proceed past the 4-hour adjournment requirement if necessary.
All in favor? That is carried. And members of council, are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest at this time? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, I would just like some clarity if possible. I need to recuse myself, although it was passed last year when we passed a 2-year budget, but I need to continue to recuse myself from our financial grants given to the Coldwater and Oro-Medonte Agricultural Society. I just need clarity as to, because it was done prior to, do I need to do it again and have it pulled separately to vote on when it comes forward?
Not unless it was part of the budget recalibration, and I will refer to the treasurer for that.
Through you, Yvonne, to Mr. Mayor, we will be reviewing the approved budget items that have not changed, so there likely will be no need for you to be excused.
Okay. So as long as there's no change in financial component, then it would remain status quo.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I did fill out a form anyways and submit it just as a precautionary note. And Councillor Shell, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Greenlaw, through you to the public and the rest of council. Item 4F regarding short-term rentals, I have to declare a conflict. I've already done that on the calendar at the office because I have a short-term rental. Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Shell. And welcome, Councillor Barden. We were declaring any potential pecuniary interest. If you want, once you are set up and we do come across that, if you find you're in a situation where there's a pecuniary interest, you can declare at that time. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so may we now have a motion to go into closed session, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Young, seconded by Bard. Be it resolved that we do now go into closed session at 2:40 p.m. to discuss litigation affecting the municipality, solicitor-client privilege, procurement, short-term rentals, STR, personal information about an identifiable individual, Couchiching OPP Detachment Board or Oro-Medonte Community Representative, and litigation affecting the municipality, Carriage Hills, Carriage Ridge.
Thank you very much. Everyone's heard the motion. I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. We'll return once we're finished in closed session. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we are live.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. May we have a motion to rise from closed session, please?
Moved by Hutchison, seconded by Lavoie. Be it resolved that we do now rise at 4:01 p.m. and report on closed session items 4C, D, E, and F.
Thank you, that was efficient, yes. Everyone, I'd like to call the vote now. All in favor? That is carried. May we have a motion for item 4C, please?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Bard. Be it resolved that confidential correspondence presented by Robin Dunn, CAO, Donna Hewitt, Director of Corporate Services, and Brian Chung, Eardon Bearless LLP, re-litigation affecting the municipality, solicitor-client privilege, procurement be received. That staff and legal counsel proceed as directed.
Call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. May I have a motion for item 4D, please?
Moved by Shell, seconded by Young. Be it resolved that confidential correspondence presented by Jenny Leggett, Manager Communications and Public Relations, personal information about an identifiable individual, Couchiching OPP Detachment Board, Oro-Medonte Community Representative be received and considered in conjunction with item 11C.
All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And may we have a motion for item 4E, please?
Moved by Bard, seconded by Lavoie. Be it resolved that confidential correspondence presented by Robin Dunn, CAO, and Nellie Moreau, Director of Finance, Chief Financial Officer, re-litigation affecting the municipality, Carriage Hills, Carriage Ridge, be received. That staff proceed as directed.
Thank you. All in favor? That is carried. And may we have a motion for item 4F?
Moved by Lavoie, seconded by Clark. Be it resolved that confidential correspondence presented by Robin Dunn, CAO, and Chris Williams, Eardon Bearless LLP. Actually, it was Brian Chung, so correction. Re-litigation affecting the municipality, solicitor-client privilege, short-term rentals, STR, be received. That staff and legal counsel proceed as directed.
All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. May we have a motion for the March 13th minutes, please, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Hutchison, seconded by Shell. Be it resolved that the draft minutes of the council meeting held on Wednesday, March 13th, 2024 be received and adopted as printed and circulated.
Are there any amendments to the draft minutes by members of council? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Recognition of achievements, I see none. There's no public meetings this week. Deputations and presentations, that's where we're at now. Just because I've seen a number of people have come into chamber since the beginning of the meeting. I'm asking that everyone in the council chamber turn their cell phones off. And anyone who does come forward to speak in chamber, that you adjust the mic so that you're speaking into the mic so that it's clear for our live streaming session. So, Madam Clerk, are there any, or actually, now that we're at the deputation, there's a deputation by Miss Miles. Could you please come to the podium? Or is
Mr.
she doing
Mayor,
it?
I believe we were going to bring the Sunday gun report
Okay, so you
and
want,
the other MLEO report forward at this time.
okay, so may I suggest this, that we move Miss Miles's deputation back?
We have Ms. Miles listed for 5:30
Okay.
on the agenda.
So at this point, is there, you want to do, let's do the open forum first. Does that make sense? Because if anyone in chamber wants to speak to it, and I don't know who's registered to speak to agenda items at this time. So let's move to open forum. And have we anyone registered from the public to make comments on the agenda items, Madam Clerk?
We do, Mr. Mayor. We have one applicant or one registrant, 11A, and it is Jeff Brain. And he's here in person to speak.
Okay. Mr. Brain, if you'd like to come forward and speak at the podium.
Well, thank you, Council, for giving me the opportunity to speak today with regards to this issue. I have lived in Oro-Medonte since 91. Actually, it was only Oro, but I have lived in Oro-Medonte Township since 91 till present, and I've owned and operated Brains Taxidermy in that same time frame. So when this was brought to my attention, I thought it mandatory that I come and speak today to maybe give some insight with regards to how you may vote. Obviously, being a taxidermist, you can put two and two together that myself, my staff, and my family are quite outdoors people, and we enjoy partaking in the outdoors. So obviously, I'm here to address the concerns with regards to why you may vote against bringing in Sunday gun hunting. But I first wanted to just read one paragraph from Ontario Outdoors magazine with regards to other municipalities. And it's just one chapter or one paragraph, and it basically says that for decades, hunting with a gun on Sundays in southern Ontario was prohibited by the Game and Fish Act and subsequently by the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Act. But in 2005, we partnered with friends at the Ontario Federation of Agriculture and successfully convinced the provincial government to loosen restrictions on Sunday gun hunting in southern Ontario. Following public consultation, 67 municipalities immediately passed resolutions to permit Sunday gun hunting, and in the years since, over 192 municipalities, including Scugog and Minto townships, that passed resolutions early in 2024, and there are whispers of progress in other municipalities to date. Some might argue that it's only one day of the week, but this prohibition has real-world consequences for the people that we represent, from family that can't hunt together due to other family commitments like school and sports, to the farmer that can't even hunt geese with a shotgun on his own property on Sundays. That's right from Ontario Outdoors magazine. So my four concerns are, let's start with the easiest one, concerns for wildlife populations. The Ministry of Natural Resources already puts out limits for possession and bag limits, so you cannot over-harvest. So it has zero impact. As a taxidermist for 40 years, I have never seen populations go to the point where they've been endangered, et cetera, et cetera. Sundays, a time for family. To me, I think that's passé. That has kind of gone by the wayside. I think that it's so commercialized nowadays that Sunday is just another day of the week, and if somebody is a church goer, then they would be in church and probably wouldn't hear gunshots in that same time frame. So 7 days a week to hear gunshots. I just want to be really crystal clear, and that is most of the hunting would be on private property, so it'd still be up to the discretion of the landowner to permit Sunday gun hunting. But I want to really stress that hunting is not killing. I might go out into every Sunday for 5 Sundays and never discharge my firearm due to maybe not having the opportunity. So it's not like you allow Sunday gun hunting and there's a barrage of gunshots. We selectively take our game, we take our time, and again, I may not ever discharge my firearm on a Sunday. As far as safety concerns, last count, there's 26 Simcoe County forests in Oro-Medonte Township. So everybody that walks their dog, their horse, rides their horse, ATVs, already know that there's going to be possible an interaction that hunters are also allowed to be in that same Simcoe County forest. Most importantly, to be able to hunt in a Simcoe County forest, you have to be a member of the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters. Once you are a member of the OFH, you are automatically given a $5 million liability. So God forbid there is an accident, there is some type of coverage, and I would argue that anybody that is walking their dog or riding their horse would not have such insurance. And we all know the percentages and the statistics are very, very minimal. You're more likely to get hurt playing ping pong than you are from a hunting accident. But anyhow, I know that this meeting was very short. I could have filled the room with 137 people that I personally contacted that pay taxes that live in Oro-Medonte, but being it's Wednesday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, everybody had work commitments. And last but not least, to allow Sunday gun hunting would allow a gentleman that still works Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, that his only opportunities to partake are Saturday and Sunday. And he or she may have commitments with their children in sports, and Sunday might be the only day that is awarded for them to partake in the outdoors. And that is it.
Okay.
So hopefully you take that into consideration, that there are a lot of people not present here. And I do have a list of names that I have personally called that said I could submit their names to show that they are in favor and support of that. 25 of them are businesses also in this township that are outdoors people. So I hope you take that into consideration on your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brain. Council members, is there questions for clarity? This isn't a two-way dialogue, but if there's questions of clarity at this time, is there any for Mr. Brain? No? Thank you very much.
Your Worship, may I speak to council?
Yep, just give me 1 sec. We will acknowledge other people that haven't registered in chamber once we've crossed off the ones that have registered in advance. And so, you know, it's an important issue. I want to make sure we get these things right. Open forum is policy 2 minutes. I'm going to ask council that, you know, I'd ask everyone to try and keep them concise, and it was concise, and thank you very much, Mr. Brain. But I want to pass a motion now, if council is willing us to waive procedure, that if somebody goes over 2 minutes, we're not cutting them off mid-sentence. So I'll just call a vote to, see, all in favor? Okay, so just so that's covered off and we're properly.
We don't have a mover and a seconder on that.
Oh, sorry, well, that's because too many people put their cards up at once.
Just saying, and shout.
So the mover is Mr. Young and the seconder is Mr. Councillor Clark. And now I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried.
Thank you.
So is there anyone else registered at this time, Madam Clerk?
No, Mr. Mayor, there is no one
Okay.
on the.
So at this time, I will invite anyone one at a time to come to the podium and speak. I'd ask that you give your name just so that it's on record, and adjust the mic so that you are speaking into the mic and it's clear for people watching from home.
Members of council and your worship, my name is Gary Renault. I live at 40 Elvin Crescent, Oro-Medonte, and I've lived here for just under 30 years. I want to say thanks to Mr. Brain for a great deputation and a well thought out presentation. I think Jeff covered a couple of key elements here. The reason I wasn't registered to speak today was because I only found out about this 2 days ago, and I was actually shocked that this addendum to our bylaw within our township was not sort of publicly announced. I had never received anything in the mail, nor in the form of an email from the municipality. I would also comment that I'm a licensed hunter and a trapper within the township. I think there's an overwhelming population of coyotes, and as a business person, I work 5 days a week, just like you folks. So it leaves me 1 day a week to work on extricating coyotes for our local farmers and the landowners here. It is a real problem. They're in my backyard, quite frankly, walking right up my walkway. So I think it's a real problem. It's also creating heavy predation on our deer population, which I think we all enjoy to see the deer in our local areas. And I also enjoy eating the meat from the venison. I think really if people had known, you would have had a much larger turnout. There's a lot of tradespeople and just regular working people, not like working from the city and commuting into our neighborhoods. And I think if the voice was out there, you would have had overwhelming response with other like-minded people like myself and Mr. Brain. I think it's important to our community and to our landowners, meaning our farmers. I have several parcels of land signed off by our landowners, and they're fed up with the geese. And I would also mention, I think the municipality spends a fair bit amount of money at the parks, like at the Oro Park, trying to extricate the geese. Not only is it causing damage to the landowners with the winter wheat and some of the other spring crops, and you can just drive around our community and see that that's going on with the geese in the fields. So I don't think, to Jeff's point, that we're going to see any sort of decline in or concern of the geese population becoming extinct by any stretch. I think more importantly, the other thing with regards to the coyote population, I'd love to know what the math is for predation with our farmers, with the sheep farmers. We have several sheep farmers in our community. And I don't know if that's public information or not, but it's something also to consider. And I wish some of the local farmers like Mr. Partridge or Don Hubbard or some of the other guys that allow us to hunt would have been up here to maybe speak about some of their concerns as well. And the other thing that I was wondering about is, has there ever been any direct contact with the coyotes and people walking in the Simcoe County forest? Because that's more common down in the U.S. and in other parts of Ontario than we know. I'd like to thank you at this time for listening to what I had to say. Thank you very much.
Okay. Councillor Shell, you have a question?
Yes. Please, if you don't mind. Thank you very much. I respect your position as a trapper. I know that beaver trappers have a quota that they have to fulfill every year, and if they don't fulfill that quota, they can lose their license. Does that same hold true for you with the coyotes?
No, sir, it is not. And that quota is very specific for people that have licensed trap lines in Simcoe County, and there's actually only 2 licensed trappers that have actual trap lines with quotas in Simcoe County. For a gentleman like myself, I'm able to maintain some of the properties that I hunt on by trapping beavers, like on Jim's properties, to stop the flooding and things like that. So there's no quota required for me. But I have to have landowner permission and sign off and then take it over to Springwater with all the proper signatures.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Young.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just curious about the coyotes. What are your stats on those? I mean, is there an overabundance of them in Oro-Medonte? I have a farm, and of course, there's coyotes on it as well, and you can hear them wailing at night. It's like a horror story sometimes when they get wailing there. But how much information do you have on the number of coyotes in Oro-Medonte?
That's a great question, and I don't know the statistics on that, and I'm not sure that there would be a public record or a stat on that. But I would say to you, clearly, the coyote population, they're sick. They have mange, and that's because there's so many. Yeah. And it's something to be concerned about to keep our animal populations healthy. And mange is something that is transferred from one to the other.
Okay, yeah, I recall that, I guess the Big Circle Ranch down there, they had a hell of a time, I guess, with coyotes going in there and grabbing the sheep, if I recall correctly. And I've had beavers on my Coldwater River there, the riverbank beavers, and I actually did bring a trapper in to get 2 or 3 of them, because they'll eat everything within, half a mile type of thing, trees that is. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions at this time? Thank you very much for your information and speaking.
Thank you, sir.
Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to, if you'd like to come towards the mic, adjust it so you're speaking into it, and just give your name, please.
Hello, I'm John Similis. I'm a local hunter and fisherman. I hunt and fish a lot in this area. I pride myself in taking children and kids fishing and hunting. So during hunting season, it's the same time the kids are going to school. They only have X number of days to join me, and the properties I have to do all of my goose and duck hunting are in Oro-Medonte. So that only leaves me 1 day a week to bring children and my own children and then other children out hunting. And it just, I feel like it limits the amount of time that young people get to enjoy the outdoors. That being said, they lose interest when it's not something that they get to do. And there is only so many places I can bring children hunting with me. And it's just a large concern of mine that we're losing that part of our children coming into the sport. And for me, it's really important to see that.
Okay.
That's about all I have to bring forward that wasn't brought forward by Jeff and Gary.
No, I thank you very much for your comments. Much
No problem.
appreciated. Thank you. Any other questions by members of council at this time? If not, then is there anyone else in the audience here who would like to speak to any matters on the agenda today? Seeing none. Okay, so Madam Clerk, we'll move to, I just want to make sure we can then move to item 11A. May we have a motion for 11A?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Bard. Be it resolved that DS 2024-036, Curtis Shelswell, Manager, Municipal Law, Sunday gun hunting be received and adopted. That council consider option blank, provided within the body of the report. Option 1 is continue with the prohibition to not allow gun hunting on Sundays within the township of Oro-Medonte. Or option 2, to defer the topic, go out and seek public consultation through an online survey and report back on the results prior to a decision. Or option 3, to permit Sunday gun hunting and staff submit the resolution of council to the MNRF, so that amendments can be made to Ontario Regulation 663-/98 and advise the public of the change through the township's website and social media feeds. And that if council chooses to permit Sunday gun hunting, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry be advised of this decision and request that the ministry make the appropriate amendments under Ontario Regulation 663/98 to allow Sunday gun hunting in the township of Oro-Medonte.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Okay, so council, Chief of Bylaw Curtis Shelswell is available to answer any questions at this time. Do you have any questions for Mr. Shelswell regarding this matter, Councillor Shell?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Greenlaw, through you to Curtis. Curtis, what seems to be the issue with hunting with guns on Sunday? What complaints have you been getting?
Through you, Mayor Greenlaw, to Councillor Shell. We don't receive typically complaints about hunting or anything like that, so there really hasn't been any complaints to say. This has been, like I say, through the report, more of an inquiry from the hunting community as to why we haven't enacted this resolution or enacted this permission. So that's kind of what brought this forward. Not necessarily complaints, but this has been brought forward by the hunting enthusiasts and then asking why we haven't gone down this route yet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions at this time? Deputy Mayor Lavoie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to everybody who gave presentations. Mr. Shelswell, for a question for you, how long would it take the Ministry of Natural Resources to approve any changes that we would submit to them? Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Greenlaw, to Deputy Mayor Lavoie. I'm unsure on how the length of it. I know it probably won't be right away, but I would say we would probably have something through midsummer and then before migratory season in the fall.
Supplemental?
Yes, thank you very much. And what is the net effect in the number of additional days of hunting, whether they be any day of the week?
So to clarify, I think the report said 7 days. It's actually through migratory bird and the wild turkey season, there would be 10 days additional hunting. But I will note that the report spells out if the municipality does not permit Sunday hunting, the migratory bird season actually does get extended to January 6th. So an extra week on top of migratory bird season to allow for municipalities that don't permit Sunday hunting. So really, you're only looking at 5 additional days on top of what's permitted already.
Thank you very much. And
Yeah, no, I guess, Mr. Shelswell, how does it, but there's also an effect, is there not, to the total number of days of deer hunting?
through you, Mayor Greenlaw, no, that's where the correction comes in. The deer hunting season is a controlled hunt, so it's only 5 days. First full week in November and your first full week in December. It stays 5 days regardless of this resolution.
Okay. Okay. Oh, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Hutchison.
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. Through you, perhaps to Curtis or someone else, with the public consultation, how long would that process take if we were to go through that and get the results? And if we then made the decision to go ahead and extend the hunting to Sunday, would that put a delay in the, well, it would put a delay into the approval by, or the notification of the ministry. So would, you know, I'm just trying to get what the impact of that would be.
I don't, through Mayor Greenlaw to Councillor Hutchison, I don't see much of a delay there, no. You'd probably put something out for a couple of weeks through the online side of it, and then come back with results at the closest, the next council meeting, so late April to report back.
Thank you, Mr. Shelswell.
Mr. Shelswell, if could you tell me of the other municipalities surrounding this area? Are they all implementing a Sunday hunt now?
So we've Springwater recently, through you, Mayor Greenlaw, Springwater recently just implemented the resolution. Severn has already. Romero, Clearview, Tay, and Tiny have already jumped on board as well. So you're starting to see more municipalities jump on board, and as it was alluded to in the open discussion, they've gone from 67 that immediately jumped on up over to 100, more than 100 municipalities within the southern region of the province. So slowly, you're seeing more and more municipalities jump on board with the Sunday hunt.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Councillor Clark?
No questions. I guess maybe just a clarification. So currently, individuals would be allowed to target practice and not hunt on their properties on Sundays, and there would be no limit potentially to the nuisance caused by that to a budding property owners that we've heard concerns about. And instead, they might be allowed to, if they were allowed to hunt on Sunday, they would actually reduce the amount of incidents of noise concerns from, if someone's hunting, they're not going to be shooting off 50 rounds, they're going to be shooting off potentially 0 or 1. So there's actually a mitigation strategy from a noise perspective. Just food for thought, I guess.
No, thank you for that perspective. And I agree. It's, you know, it doesn't include target shooting. This is hunting. And anyway, so is there any other, Councillor Schell?
Yeah, I just have a question about the motion. I'm not clear on, the motion just gave us 3 choices, but I'm not hearing anything identified as one. Are we voting on the 3 choices?
That is exactly what it, yes, the motion's to be filled in and the discussion takes place, and then when the discussion's done, then I look for a member of council to bring forward what motion they want floored, and then it would be voted on at that time. Councillor Bard.
I think that maybe the ban on Sunday hunting is a little bit outdated, because to be more inclusive, different people worship or are spiritual on different days of the week, and we're at a 24/7 days a week. So I would like to put forward option number 3, if that's okay.
Okay, Madam Clerk, I have a mover by Councillor Bard for option 3, seconded by Councillor Schell. Now, I guess I would ask council, would you like the motion fully reread before voting? So could you read the motion with option 3 in, please, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Bard, seconded by Schell. Be it resolved that DS 2024-036, Curtis Shelswell, Manager, Municipal Law, Sunday gun hunting be received and adopted. That council consider option number 3 provided within the body of the report. Option number 3, to permit Sunday gun hunting, and staff submit the resolution of council to the MNRF so that the amendments can be made to Ontario Regulation 663/98 and advise the public of the change through the township's website and social media feeds. That if council chooses to permit Sunday gun hunting, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry be advised of this decision and request that the ministry make the appropriate amendments under Ontario Regulation 663/98 to allow Sunday gun hunting in the township of Oro-Medonte.
Okay. So everyone's heard the motion, and everyone, just want to make sure everyone's clear in the motion. Okay, so I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. I want to thank Curtis for your answering our questions. I want to thank the public for giving their input. Madam Clerk, may we have a motion for item 11B, please?
Moved by Hutchison, seconded by Shell. Be it resolved that DS 2024/026 Curtis Shelswell, Manager, Municipal Law, and Brooklyn Robinson, Municipal Law Enforcement Officer, administrative monetary penalty process be received and adopted. That staff be directed to create a policy or policies related to the appointment of screening and hearing officers. That staff be directed to bring the draft administrative monetary penalty system and screening and hearing officer bylaw to council's consideration. That once the required bylaws have been given 3 readings, staff are directed to commence implementation of the AMP system, including but not limited to creation of necessary documents and procedures, as well as the necessary updates to existing bylaws that will be subject to AMPS.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. So at this time, I can open it for discussion. Does anybody want clarity in order to this from Councillor, or not Councillor, from Mr. Shelswell? You're all fine with the motion? Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. May we have a motion for 11C, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Shell, seconded by Clark. Be it resolved that CS 2024-07, Jenny Leggett, Manager, Communications and Public Relations, Ree Couchiching OPP Detachment Board appointments be received and adopted. That the following individuals be appointed to the Couchiching OPP Detachment Board for the term commencing April 1st, 2024 and concluding November 14th, 2026. That Kathy Clark as the Township of Oro-Medonte Community Representative, and B, Councillor Blank as the Township of Oro-Medonte's elected representative.
Yeah, I'll open the floor for discussion on this matter. Seeing none, I want to thank Ms. Clark for putting her name forward, and I want to thank was it Blank still? Sorry, my apologies, because we appointed this at the beginning of the term, but we're a year and change before the board actually has been implemented. So will someone, I don't want to break any rules, will someone put forward the councillor that we're recommending for the board? Councillor Clark?
I'd like to move that Councillor Robert Young be placed on the Police Services Board.
And
seconded by Councillor Shell.
Mr. Mayor, I have this moved by Shell and seconded by Clark, so is it okay if we leave it that way? Yeah. All right, thank you.
So, and we'll put into that blank spot that's been lonely for a while, Councillor Young. Okay?
I have one other question. Just, is it Kathy with a C or a K?
It's Kathy with a C.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, no, perfect. Well, thank you, Councillor Young, for serving on that, and thank you, Ms. Clark. So I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. May we have a motion for item 11D, please, Madam Clerk? Oh, sorry. CO Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would, Mr. Mayor, you and council consider addressing E through J prior to dealing with 11D? 11D would flow nicely into the follow-up discussion regarding the budget. The clerk has some suggestions that council may consider regarding the number of tender awards from operations.
Sure. That's fine. So, Madam Clerk, may we have a motion for item 11E?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I was wondering, since we do have a number of awards, that perhaps we can pass them the same way we do the consent agenda and pass them in aggregate, if council is okay with that. And if any items would like to be pulled, then of course council are welcome to do that.
So that would encompass item E to J?
E through J,
Okay.
Your Worship.
You don't want to read each motion individually?
I certainly can, if council needs that for clarity.
Well, I don't think it's a commission deal, so I'm happy if you want to just package them all in one. You can aggregate them, please.
Mr. Mayor, is there anything that needs to be pulled?
No, I believe council members is from E to J. Is there any items you'd like to be pulled for separate discussion? No, then you can aggregate them, please, Madam Clerk.
Moved by Young, seconded by Shell, be it resolved that the recommendations outlined in the award of tenders 11E, F, G, H, I, J be approved as outlined on the recommendations in the agenda reports.
All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So are we fine to move on, Madam Clerk, to item 12, and we'll just continue and come back? So
We will just continue until the 5:30 time requirement that we have for deputation.
is it 5 or 5:30? 5:30. 5:30. Okay. Reports of municipal officers. We're now at item 12, and there are 2 reports to be received. Mr. Binns, I understand that you and that this is Mrs. Grubbs, the first report to council following the resumption of recreational programs last year. Would you like to provide an introduction to the report and then proceed?
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. Jody Grube is in the audience tonight. I just wanted to recognize Jody. Jody's been in the position for a year, and you can see in the report all the work that's been done in working with our community and providing direct recreation programming. In addition to direct programs, Jody works really closely with our community hall boards, our community sport organizations, and a number of different groups in the provision of special events. So I just wanted to introduce Jody and her role, and just recognize Jody for the work that she's done over the past year.
Thank you very much. And I apologize for the mispronunciation of your last name. So, okay, so I'll open the floor for any discussion or questions.
Mr. Mayor, these items are for information only.
But they're likely very interested to hear something.
Council
Okay.
can ask questions, yes.
Okay. I'll call the vote then. All in favor? That is carried. Now
Mr. Mayor, we did not read the motion.
We're not working as smoothly as we used to.
I apologize.
It's okay. Please read the motion.
Moved by Hutchison, seconded by Clark. Be it resolved that the reports as outlined under item number 12, reports of municipal officers for information only, be received.
for the motion? Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to staff. I think this is a wonderful jump start back into offering programming again in the township, and so I wanted to commend Mr. Binns and Ms. Grubb for doing that. I think, you know, we're going to continue to see an increased involvement in our community in these camps as people continue to look for different opportunities, and having this as an opportunity within the township so we're not driving into neighboring municipalities. I know sometimes it could still be far because we're a massive geography, but it's another benefit and service that we provide to our constituents, and so I thank you again for restarting this, and I look forward to 2024 and beyond.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Deputy Mayor Lavoie.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Clark, and I just wanted to say the same. This is tremendous news, and the report is excellent, and it really reflects a lot of the participation and opportunities that we're offering our own citizens right here at home. So thanks again for all that hard work, Ms. Grube, and Sean for supporting her in this manner.
Thank you. See no more yellow cards, I'll call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. We're on to 12B, Nellie Morrow, Director of Finance, 2023 Treasurer Statement of Remuneration. May I have the motion, please?
Mr. Mayor, that was passed under 12. No, both of those are passed under the same motion. Oh, sorry, my mic keeps cutting out. Both are passed under 12A and B together.
Reports of members of council. Are there any reports members of council have it?
I don't know why I apologize. My mic keeps cutting out. Would you like to refer back to item 11D, which is the budget item, before you go on, or would you like to go to council announcements?
You know what? That's a great suggestion. Why don't we go back to 11D? May we have a motion, please? I never was very good at hopscotch in public school.
Well, Mr. Mayor, we have made things a little confusing today,
No, it's
so
all
we are
good.
hopping
No,
around.
It's all good.
And I believe the CAO would like to speak to the item before the motion is read.
Mr. Dunn?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. And the language in the agenda happens to be incorrect regarding the environmental initiative budget ratification. Certainly it was Mr. Spagnol who drafted and worked this process through with me and with representatives of the conservation authorities. And I realize when Ms. Aubuchon puts the resolution on the floor, Mr. Spagnol will spend some time with members of council. You did not have a couple of days to review this report. We did indicate that you would have a fulsome report. You didn't have a fulsome amount of time to be able to review that. So I just want to flag one, it is Mr. Spagnol's work that is before you, and Brent will be walking you through that. And Ms. Aubuchon has a multi-part resolution, Mr. Mayor.
So, Madam Clerk, do we want to hear Mr. Spagnol's presentation before the motion, or do you want to read the motion first?
I leave that entirely up to you. There are options.
Yeah.
There are options in the motion, so it may be better for Mr. Spagnol to speak first, and then council will have a clearer indication of what those options are.
Is it a lengthy motion?
Yes.
Okay, then. No, if it was short, then at least it would give us some framework, but that's fine. Mr. Spagnol, if you wouldn't mind proceeding when ready.
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw and council. The report before council today is a follow-up of the budget process and the budget deliberations that occurred on March 20th. Council will recall that the item with respect to the ratification of budgetary asks from the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, and the Severn Sound Environmental Association, that those budget asks were essentially parked through the budget deliberations. The purpose of this report before council is twofold. The first is to take a look at the budgetary asks being provided by the conservation authorities. The second aspect of that is to get direction from council regarding required memoranda of understanding that are required to be providing non-mandatory services to the municipality. And a separate aspect of this as well will be some form of ratification as it relates to budgetary requests coming in from the Severn Sound Environmental Association. The idea behind the report, again, is to provide information, to try to get some form of ratification on the budgetary asks, and to get direction with respect to the memorandum of understanding. The starting point of all this really stems from the province amending the framework to which conservation authorities act. Council will recall that there was a report that was provided by the manager of planning, Mr. Karaskakis, in December of 2023, which essentially obtained direction for the mayor and the clerk to execute the memorandum of understanding for what are referred to by the province as Category 1 programs. Those Category 1 programs are related to natural hazards. They're related to things that, legislatively speaking, the conservation authorities have to ask. So from a memorandum of understanding perspective, that direction has already been provided. Moving on to Category 2 and Category 3. Those represent non-mandatory programs that the conservation authorities can provide to partnering municipalities. Those can include, in Category 2, for example, the review of specific initiatives that might be ongoing from a municipal perspective. Category 3s can include educational programs and other stewardship programs that conservation authorities may offer to private entities or private property owners as a stewardship, almost a stewardship program to residents within their partnering municipalities. Moving through to March 20th, there were a number of budgetary asks that came in and that were put in front of council for consideration. And what I'd like to do is just refer council, it would be to page 4 and 5 of the staff report that's part of the agenda. There is a chart that references the budgetary asks being submitted by the LSRCA and the NVCA. The Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority is requesting a budgetary ask of $4,008 related to Category 2s. It's important to note that those costs are tied to the Lake Simcoe Protection Act. So although they're picked up in the non-mandatory, because this work is covered under that act, the LSRCA has included those costs. In addition to those Category 2s, the LSRCA is coming in with an additional $3,490, and this really ties into the educational piece that I spoke of earlier in my presentation. The total ask from the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority is $94,394, and that includes Categories 1, Categories 2, Category 3. Again, it's important to note that as far as the budget ratification process, it's only the Category 2s and Category 3s that are being considered, because council has already provided direction for the execution of memorandum of understanding tied to the Category 1 mandatory programs. Moving on to the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, the NVCA, there are no Category 2 non-mandatory programs being proposed. There is however $24,289 being proposed under the Category 3 non-mandatory programming, which equates to a total budget of $235,200. Moving on to page 5 of the report, I note that the Severn Sound Environmental Association has a total budget ask of $161,181.
Because Severn Sound Environmental Association is an association, they are not covered under the memorandum of understanding requirements that have been pushed down, and that the conservation authorities are required to enter into, because they're not recognized as an authority under the Act. The total budget ask that was presented to council was $502,054, and that's representative of the conservation authorities and the Severn Sound Environmental Association. Now, as part of that budgetary process, there were 3 items that council had flagged that required further clarification, and they were primarily related to the service being provided by the NVCA and the SSEA. Those I'll call them themes, related to overlap in service and assurances from the NVCA and the SSEA that there would not be any overlap in service. The second component of that was additional information to be provided by the NVCA on those Category 3 programs and how those Category 3 programs benefit the Township of Oro-Medonte. And then the third consideration was related to funding reconciliation as it related to overlap of service and some historic levy work that was done, which identified an overlap with a dollar amount of $40,000, which would require reconciliation through some form of budgeting process and review. The NVCA provided a pamphlet that's included as attachment 1 to the report that provides an overview of the service being provided as part of the Category 3s. It provides an overview of the dollars being spent in Oro-Medonte with respect to certain programs. For example, there's programs related to reforestation, and those are essentially stewardship programs where they work with private property owners to plant trees and enhance the tree vegetation with an overarching goal to improve the environment. That's just one example. Another aspect of the submission from the NVCA also relates to the apportionment component of how they arrive at the, we'll call it a recognition overlap in service and fees. From staff's perspective, there will need to be additional review to clearly understand how they've arrived at those fees and within that apportionment. But that information has been provided as part of the attachment from the NVCA. So in closing, with respect to the budget ratification process, what is being asked of council today is to consider the ratification of the budget through various options, to consider and provide direction to staff with respect to what types of considerations council wants to be placed within memorandum of understanding. Now, moving into that consideration, there are essentially 4 aspects of the memorandum of understanding that staff are looking for clarification on. The first would be whether or not council would like the authorities to provide non-mandatory services, and that would be done and facilitated through memorandum of understanding. The second aspect is how long would council want that memorandum of understanding to be in place for? It should be noted that they can be in place for a maximum of 5 years, so that is not a set requirement. It is up to council to decide how long council would like to enter into those memorandum of understanding. The apportionment formula is another aspect of the memorandum of understanding that need to be considered. And then, of course, there's termination clauses built in every agreement as to what the process is if for some reason the partner would like to not participate in the agreement and essentially not have the authorities provide the level of service. I think firstly, Mayor Greenlaw, if there's any questions, that's a lot of information to present and throw at council in one shot. But if I'd be open to answer any questions that council may have at this point before we jump into the options, but I'm at your disposal if you'd like me just to present the options and then have questions and answers after. I'm in your hands, Mayor Greenlaw.
Thank you very much, Director Spagnell. I guess my first concern is signing a 5-year MOU when we are only we only have 2.5 years left in our term. I don't think is right. I don't like to bind future councils to an MOU. I think they should be able to do it on their own. I also think because there still is a lot of inconsistency and unclarity, I think the MOU should only be for 1 year. So this year, which means we need to start working on getting clarity on the MOUs that are in front of us. I still find with, at this point with the NVCA, I'm not clear, although they've presented what the overlap is. They show the calculation of where they say they are after going from 40,000 to 0, now back to 10,000. They don't provide clarity on the calculation of what created the 40,000. So also I know the province has intervened and has kind of downloaded some of those services back to the municipalities. And from my understanding, their coal is not exposed within the report. And I believe there's 2 incremental FTEs that have been added to the organization. So if we're receiving less services, but the head count and there's just too many things that I'm not comfortable with. I would support signing off on an MOU to include their level 3s, and my colleagues can weigh in on this as well, under the conditions that the $40,000 offset stays in place until further clarity is provided, because the clarity I don't feel comfortable supporting at this time. So that is my input, and I open the floor to any other members of council that would like to ask questions of Mr. Spagnell at this time. Councillor Schell.
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. Through you to the rest of our members on council here, I support what you just said regarding the extra, like the number 3, because they are providing a really good service to the community with the education program they have out there at NVCA. And the sooner we engage our young kids into looking after our environment, the better. And they do a great job. They've been doing it for a long time. So I support that.
Any other members? Deputy Mayor Lavoie.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I definitely support the notion that we need more clarity on this $40,000 matter, and perhaps it could be brought back to council either directly by the NVCA or through their representative in the future, and I encourage that we make that contingent upon the $40,000 clarification be contingent upon the budget approval, or vice versa.
Okay. No. I know, Madam Clerk, you're spinning, going like, I don't know how I'm going to rewrite this chicken soup. But anyways, I'm first going to, okay, so Nellie and then Mr. Spagnell, please.
Sorry, I just wanted to, through you, Mr. Mayor, mention that if the motion is to remove the 40,000 as an item to be supported in the budget, that does reduce the overall percentage of tax that we would be ratifying. And I just thought it might be important for you to know that it would decrease it from the 4.5 to 4.42.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Spagnell?
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. So I think just going back to the options that are on the table for council, it might be a good idea for me just to give an overview of what those options entail and what they represent with respect to what council's discussion has been so far through this meeting. And then while I'm doing that, I'm sure Clerk Aubuchon can if there's anything that has to be word crafted in the resolution to correctly reflect it, then that's something that can be done as I'm explaining the options. So option one, which is contained within the report, would be the full would be direction to have council ratify the budget as it was presented on March 20th. It would mean that memorandum of understanding with both the LSRCA and the NVCA would be completed as per regular process without any changes, and it would be just full steam ahead. Option two, which appears to be closely aligned with what council is considering, but maybe not entirely, and we can go through that once Clerk Aubuchon reads through the option. But that option would authorize the execution of a memorandum of understanding with both the LSRCA, the NVCA for non-mandatory services. So that would be for the LSRCA Category 2 and Category 3. For the NVCA, it would be just Category 3, and that would only be for a one-year period for 2024. And essentially the last bullet provided in the option basically reads as follows: that the NVCA for the delivery of Category 3 services, which includes provisions for discussions to reconcile the overlap of service coverage area of the NVCA and the SSCA. So if council would like to refine that aspect of the option, that could definitely be included and considered through staff's work on the resolution to articulate council's direction. And then the third option is that council decline to enter into a memorandum of understanding for Category 3 services, save and except the Category 2 services, which are mandated, for the LSRCA under the Lake Simcoe Protection Act. So I'll leave it to council to articulate that and to consider the reading of that option 2 and whether or not council would like any amendments or revisions to that. And I think it's important, again, to note that as part of this, there's also the ratification aspect of the budget associated with the SSCA and their budgetary asset needs to be grouped into that as well.
Is there any questions before? Please go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Oh, just a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Morrow. In the alternative, could we approve the amount for the NVCA, including the overlap amount, for lack of a better term, of $40,000, but direct that to the reserve so that we make a partial payment, we make the payment of what the NVCA is asking for, less the $40,000, park it in the reserve, and at such time as we get an explanation, we release whatever portion.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely, Councillor, that is an option.
So just to have clarity on this, and Mr. Spagnell, please chime in. So the challenge is the Category 3. So what's not been approved? Primaries have already been taken. Category 1's been taken care of. So the Category 2 and 3 items add to about, I believe, $26,000 or in that range, correct?
Mayor Greenlaw, the amount that's before council is $24,289, and that's for the Category 3s for the NVCA.
Okay, and so that's what we're looking to approve today.
Correct. That is the budget amount that was referenced on March 20th. But again, I would refer over to Ms. Morrow just to confirm the amounts. But that's my understanding. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct. What was tabled was a discussion regarding the NVCA Category 2 and 3 and clarification on the overlap.
Okay, so what the deputy is suggesting, I understand and agreement with, but what they presented to us is $40,000 disappeared. So if we approve the 20-some thousand dollars with getting nothing back, that's a $66,000 differential. Like the overlap fee, which is $40,000, and when they've come back, what they've come back with is it went to zero because they removed it because it was too complex or very confusing. But I have problems signing off on something for a CA that has removed something without full clarity on why it's being removed. So to approve them a category 2-3 dollar amount when they're telling us they're not paying us that, but now their recalculation comes back and says, well, it's just under $10,000 is the overlap. But they don't, what I'm concerned about is they don't provide the calculations on what came to $40,000 in previous years, that now they just give us the calculations to what they calculate to add up to 10,000. So there's a $30,000 gap there that I think needs to be bridged before we approve their category 2 and 3 items.
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. And I think that really is the issue, is that there's more clarity is required with respect to how we land at whatever the amount is that the NVCA has tabled as part of their response, and how to reconcile that $40,000. Now, the idea behind the option is to say that by entering into the memorandum of understanding, the municipality is essentially flagging the issue of the $40,000, and that needs to be reconciled at some point in time. So with a 1-year term on the memorandum of understanding, the idea is that that justification and that clarity will need to be provided as part of the next budget cycle in order to determine how that relates to the apportionment aspect of what we're trying to consider here. And I can understand your comments, Mayor Greenlaw, on where we're sitting in the difference in what we're actually accepting versus what it is that they're proposing. But I think the idea was that this was a placeholder to allow for additional conversation to confirm and articulate exactly how we're going to reconcile this through the budget cycle in the next year and as part of the next round of discussions as we get into 2025 and 2026. I hope that doesn't confuse things, but I think that, the clarity aspect of it, I can appreciate and to tell you, and I don't have an answer for you as to how that's going to roll out.
And I think, and then I'll pass it over to Councillor Bard, but I think what the deputy mayor suggested that we don't provide an MOU for them at this point. We put that money into a reserve for when they come back with clarity on the $40,000 that kind of vanished out of thin air without full understanding.
Mr. Mayor, for clarity, would you like me to read the motion?
Yes, please. Actually, and just before you do, did you have a comment or a question, Councillor Bard?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. So I'm trying to still wrap my head around this $40,000 a bit too, and I'm just wondering if it was in the envelope of what is now category 1 in the past, which is sort of a new category, and so we're lumping it into the category 2 thinking it disappeared, but it was just in the one that we can't really touch. So I guess, does anybody have an answer to that, or is that what we're looking for?
So, Mr. Mayor, perhaps Mr. Spagnol and Ms. Morrow can provide additional clarity, but I do believe it's in all of it, Councillor. That work that was done a number of years ago identified at that point in time what the overlap was. That overlap was identified in a recovery in the budget that was approved this time last year for 2023. And the NVCA has suggested in the presentation last meeting that they're not in a position to be able to, one, understand, and two, support that 40,000. What Mr. Spagnell has laid out there is an opportunity to consider all of those things and then take a look at, because we've not done that, Mr. Spagnell, take a look at the material that has come from the NVCA late on Saturday or Friday, late Friday, and work through that and determine the appropriateness of what was 40,000 and the dollar figure that the NVCA has identified.
Thank you.
Councillor Clark.
Just a couple of, through you, Mr. Mayor, just a couple points that I wanted to provide for emphasis that the MVCA has provided in their report. The provincial deadline for the execution of the MOU is March 31st. And the second part is that they have indicated that they will use reserves to cover 2024 expenses, and 2025 budget will be corrected. So when I read that, it means if we don't pay now, we will pay next year if we can't come to any sort of agreement in 3 days. That was my understanding.
No, and your understanding's not correct from the wording that's placed there, but at the end of the day, we're elected to be responsible with our taxpayers' dollars, and I think the CAs and the environmental associations do a great job of what they're supposed to do. But I need to understand how something that was there vanished, and the only explanation we really received in the presentations was it was really confusing and complex and they couldn't understand it. But that doesn't give you justification to remove it. So anyways, Ms. Morrow.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, I would just like to add that during our 23-24 budget deliberations, that particular amount was included in the total fees that the township paid to, and that so the CA Association during the 2023 year.
Thank you. So, Madam Clerk, back to where we started, could you just read the motion and hopefully it'll give us some clarity?
Moved by Young, seconded by Clark. Be it resolved that DS 2024-043 Environmental Initiative Budget Deliberations, Environmental Program Implementation Report be received, that the budget request for mandatory Category 1 environmental programs be ratified, and that further Council authorize option number 2 as outlined in Report DS 2024-043. Option number 2 reads as follows. The Council authorized the Mayor and Clerk to execute a memorandum of understanding for 2024 with the applicable conservation authorities subject to the following terms. The LSRCA be the delivery of Category 2 non-mandatory services related to the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan, LSPP, and Category 3 services. That NVCA for the delivery of Category 3 services, which includes provisions for discussion to reconcile the overlap of service coverage area of the NVCA and the SSEA.
Is that clear to everybody? Well, it's clear to nobody because no one responded. So, yeah, no. So I guess what's being discussed, and I think council wants to see, is that we can approve the SSEA and the LSRCA. We are opting to fulfill the requested the Category 3 items from the NBC under the conditions that it will be put in reserves until they can bring clarification on why the $40,000 offset has been removed. Because I'm, you know, even their second version, what they came back with, there's a $30,000 gap. So I'm not in favor of allowing them to reduce an offset that we received and continue on. So I think we will, under the conditions that they can do that, but I would say what we're gonna have to do, as the deputy mentioned at the first of the conversation, is we need to put it aside in a reserve that can be paid. That $26,000 can be paid at a later date under the understanding that they are going to, for this year, because all we're approving is a 1-year MOU for all the EAs and CAs. So for 1 year, and then we got to get clarity over that year. But this year, the $26,000 will not be provided unless they can justify the reduction they've proposed. Councillor Shell?
I don't hear that in the motion, so that'll have to be included.
That's what we're trying to figure out now.
Okay,
so that,
thank you.
Mr. Spagno, while the clerk works on something, is that an obtainable and fair solution to this so that we can move forward?
I think Mayor Greenlaw, it's a matter of determining whether or not it provides the clarity within the resolution so that we have clear instructions as to how we're going to move forward, so that we can reconcile the matter and move through the process and have those discussions. And I think as long as council is clear and feels that that direction is appropriate, I mean, then the resolution would do what it needs to do. So it's providing a path forward. It's allowing, the way I understand it, for the execution of a memorandum of understanding, but there's got to be a placeholder and there's got to be some idea as to how this is going to be reconciled as we move through the process. That's my understanding of what you're looking for, Mayor Greenlaw.
Mr. Mayor, would you have a bio break for 5 minutes to afford the clerk and Mr. Spagno and I to be able to tweak this, please, sir?
Absolutely. So we will take a short break until, do you want 10 minutes? Okay. We'll say we'll come back within 10 minutes. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we are live.
We're live.
No. No. Oh, there. They go. Playing book. There you go. Okay, Madam Clerk. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Can we move forward? Madam Clerk, IT's got us.
Moved by Young, seconded by Clark. Be it resolved that DS 2024-043, Environmental Initiative Budget Deliberations, Environmental Program Implementation Report be received, that the budget requests for mandatory Category 1 environmental programs be ratified, and further that Council authorize option number 2 as outlined in Report DS 2024-043, and option as amended, that Council authorize the Mayor and Clerk to execute a memorandum of understanding for 2024 with the applicable conservation authorities subject to the following terms. The LSRCA for the delivery of Category 2 non-mandatory services related to the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan, LSPP, and Category 3 services. The NVCA for the delivery of Category 3 services, which includes allocation contingent on reconciliation of the overlap of service coverage area of the NVCA and the SSEA. That staff hold the overlap in reserve as directed by Council until such time as reconciliation is completed, and that staff report back. That the SSEA budget be approved as presented.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions in regards to the motion? Everyone's clear on that? Okay, so I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried.
The next motion with
Mr. Mayor, is it Council's desire to address the remaining financial matters before the deputation?
How long do you think it'll take to?
I'm never correct, Mr. Mayor, so I would assume less than 5 minutes.
Let's move forward.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor, left on the parking lot were 4 items plus 1. You've dealt with the first one, the Conservation Authorities and Environmental Association matter. There was also an update regarding legal fees, grants, discussions regarding grant allocations, and some commentary that was promised by Mr. Spagnol in conjunction with Chief Dominelli regarding the old Shanty Bay Fire Hall. And once that is addressed, Mr. Mayor, there was one last item raised by the Deputy Mayor regarding coming out of the staff touch point and the challenges regarding attraction, retention, and compensation. And Ms. Obi spoke to that, so there could be additional clarity on that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, please move forward.
Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor, just as a housekeeping item, there was a inadvertent clerical error in creating the legal expense summary included in the budget presentation slide, showing the township's legal expenses separated by department. An oversight was made when grouping and organizing the legal invoices by category. I've made the corrections to the discrepancy, which reflects an overall lower amount. I'm going to share with you the slide. Oops. So you see in front of you here, I hope. Yep. The corrections to the first column you can see was what was reported on March 20th, 2024, followed by the revised actual, which is showing a reduction in total legal expenses paid by the township of $125,000. This correction will be reflected and posted on our website with the council agenda.
No. Perfect, thank you very much.
Following that, the other item that was tabled was and I will share this as well. One moment while I bring that up. This is the grant schedule that was approved by council during the 2023-2024 budget deliberation. As you can see, the funding for 23 and 24 are at the far left or right. And I've highlighted the fact that during that deliberation, council had approved the use of reserves to cover amounts above budget, which amounted to $8,900 for both years. And just to confirm, these amounts have been paid out for 2024.
Thank you.
And finally, or second to last, was the old Shanty Bay Fire Hall. You wanted some additional clarification. I'm just going to share with you the slide that, and sorry, let me just get my share up again. Oopsie, did I just log off? One moment while I share. Are you seeing the slide? Nope, give me a minute. Technical difficulties. One moment. Let me try this again. Here we go. So here's the detailed capital sheet from our meeting on March 20th, which explains what the plans were that staff presented to council. And I believe Brent has some additional comments.
Mayor Greenlaw, just based on the comments that were received, again, through the budgetary discussion that came up on March 20th with respect to the Shanty Bay Fire Hall and the retrofit project. I think the first thing that I'd like to point out is that from a bylaw enforcement perspective and from the bylaw, municipal bylaw division perspective, that in the existing trailer that's been there for, I think it's approximately 6 years, I think it was located in 2017, essentially the division has outgrown that facility. What has been set in place on an interim basis is the use of the fire hall on line 3 to provide for what we'll call temporary accommodation, to be able to accommodate municipal law enforcement in an area within that building. That would include your permanent officers and then seasonal officers that are slated to be working for the municipality, I believe, at the beginning of May. So there's been a lot of planning. There's been a lot of work that has occurred over the last couple of years to look for a permanent solution related to municipal law enforcement. And as council's aware, there was a report that was submitted and considered on November 8th of 2023, which did an assessment of facilities, fire facilities, and I believe Mr. Binns was involved in the preparation of that report and did quite a bit of work on that. And what ended up happening as part of that process is the Shanty Bay Fire Hall was pinpointed, identified in that report as a location for permanent accommodation for municipal law. The idea was that municipal law would be located there. There would be a redesign of the inside of the building, and there would be a retrofit and significant expenditure on the construction of the building to make it suitable to house municipal law. From a budgetary request, it is a fairly significant ask in that we're looking at a total of, I think it's $520,000 plus $30,000, which have been incorporated into design. And the basis for this option, as I understand it, was to provide, again, facility accommodation for municipal enforcement, that was central to the community, potentially have an outward-facing servicing component to the community, and intangibly speaking, to my mind, it would provide for enhanced morale amongst the division, given that that the division was in the trailer and they're looking to be located on a permanent basis. So, I mean, as far as the findings go, the 2024 budget allocation speaks to $290,000. The financing of that was to be achieved through reserves. I believe there's a facility reserve that's in place, but also a component could possibly be funded through development charges. So really the question that is before council is, I think with respect to this plan and the retrofit, is the direction that council wants to go with respect to accommodating municipal law. Now, in discussions with the fire chief, there are additional considerations that may be brought to the forefront, recognizing the expense that's being contemplated as part of this. But what would need to happen is a clear understanding of where emergency services is going and what their facility requirements are for emergency service complement. So really, staff are in council's hands with respect to the budgetary ask. If there is reservation from council's perspective on moving forward with the retrofit, the proposal would be that that the 2024 budgetary ask be set aside as a provisional budget item. That would allow for further review of the fire chief, Mr. Binns, myself, to take a look at the facilities component and then report back prior to moving forward with this particular option. Again, Mr. Binns is available. Fire chief is available. I'm available to answer any questions, and staff are in your hands. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that explanation. Councillor Bard, you have a question?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. I can't find what we're talking about on the agenda, so I'm a little concerned. What item are we talking about on the agenda?
It's within the budgetary review and the stuff.
I don't see a budgetary review on the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, for clarity for members of council, when the environmental services issue came forward, I indicated that there was an error in how that was categorized. The intent was for ratification of the budget under that item, both from an environmental service provision perspective, as well as the items that were tabled on the parking lot. I apologize, Councillor Bard, I did flag that there was an error in how that initially was identified. The commitment to council was to bring back the items that were on that parking lot and ensure for ratification today that there was clarity with council on all of those items: the legal fees, the grants, the provision of environmental services, and this matter regarding the Shanty Bay facility.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll open the floor for any comments or discussion regarding Mr. Spagnell's comments for the fire chief or Mr. Binns. Deputy Mayor LeBlanc.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm in favor of deferring the expenditure this year of the $290,000 to allow the emergency services and the bylaw enforcement to work out an understanding as to the utility of using the fire hall at the Line 3 location to house our municipal law enforcement in the interim. I understand they've looked at the site and they think it's suitable and that this will work. Thank you.
CEO Dunn.
Mr. Mayor, would the deputy be comfortable with, as Mr. Spagnell identified, a provisional item, deputy contingent on a report back, and all of that due diligence that Mr. Spagnell referenced, not only him, the chief, and Mr. Binns?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Any, Mr. Spagnell, did you?
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. And further to CAO Dunn's comment, that's why I was waving around over here trying to get your attention. But I think I just wanted to point out that that it's a matter that, from the division's perspective, needs to get sorted out. And that's why I had forgot to mention, so my apologies, that we'd be looking to revisit this mid-2024. So, to try to keep the urgency on this and keep things moving forward. There's questions about the work that's already been completed with respect to design of the Shanty Bay Hall. I think the expectation would be that we'd be trying to move forward to actually have the design complete for internal design. I'm not sure what the expense would be for the external design of the hall, but I would leave that to Director Binns to sort out and to clarify if he's able to do so at this point. But there is some urgency still on this project in that a permanent solution would need to be arrived at fairly shortly, I would think.
Mr. Binns, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. Through to council, just to maybe clarify the budget and the background that was provided in November of last year. We did do an extensive review of the facilities that were available, and certainly recognize the circumstances that we, unfortunately, given timing on this recommendation coming forward, we weren't able to look at a solution or a permanent solution for municipal law. And unfortunately, these temporary solutions take time and cost money. And we've invested money in a temporary fit up, or at this stage, what's a temporary fit up at an existing fire hall. So I do think it would be prudent for us to continue with detailed design. We have completed a site plan and floor plan. It is a relatively small facility, so it would be sorting through the HVAC components and getting that done so that at least we can, I think, come back with the cost to be a more accurate budget estimate of what that would look like, and allow for some more discussion on cost benefit. At the same time, if there was the decision to move forward, at least that we're in a position that we could go to tender and we don't lose a year, because I think if we don't do that, we're into another full year or putting something out where it's not optimal, an optimal time to do that. So my recommendation would be to continue to proceed, and you can see in the budget spreadsheet that there is a $30,000 allocation to do that. So if we could keep that, if council was in concurrence with that, to keep that advance, and as Mr. Spagnell indicated, we would come back with a more detailed report. There's a natural stage gate that exists there that we would have more accurate costing, and we would also have the experience of municipal law being in the accommodation for a number of months, and probably better direction from fire, as Chief Dominelli looks at kind of the longer term needs of the department and compatibility there. So that would be our recommendation.
Okay, no, that's fine. Thank you very much. Any other comments on this matter? Seeing none. Ms. Morrow.
Sorry, just through you, Mr. Mayor, one last item that was on the table to just quickly discuss, which Robin mentioned, was the attraction, retention, and compensation item that we will be coming to council with more information. But I just wanted to comment that at March 20th meeting, the Director of HR did provide some clarification to the question that was posed by council, with that there would be a plan that we were going to develop in the 2024 year with financial impacts considered during the 25-26 budget deliberation, but that we will be working through that throughout the 24 year to come back to council.
Thank you. Okay. Is there any comments in regards to Ellie's comments? Seeing none. Then, Madam Clerk, is there a motion?
We'll have this first. Moved by Lavoie, seconded by Hutchison. Be it resolved that 2023/2024 capital and operating budget refinements presented by Nellie Morrow, Director of Finance, Chief Financial Officer, re 2023/2024 capital and operating budget refinements be received and adopted. That the Chamber of Commerce and Orillia and Lake Country budget line items be supported contingent upon receipt of the report detailing their financial operations.
Okay, any questions, comments? None? Call the vote. All in favor? That is carried.
We do have
One more
another-
motion.
Yes.
Please.
Sorry. Moved by Lavoie, seconded by Hutchison. Be it resolved that 2023/2024 operating and capital budgets as amended, effective March 20th, 2024, be received and adopted to achieve an overall tax increase for 2024 of 4.5% and reflect a 4.5% tax increase in 2024 to include option number 2, approved from the Environmental Initiatives Report, and that staff hold the overlap in reserve as directed by council, which was passed in the other motion. So I will scratch that from this motion, and we'll just number 2 of the Environmental Initiatives Report.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Then I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried, Madam Clerk. Okay, so this will take us back. Is it okay if we move back to item 8 now?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So, Ms. Miles, thank you for your patience and for the 5 minutes. That works off a different clock, but at least we got to where we need to be. So, if you want to adjust the mic and announce your name so that the people at home listening can hear you clearly, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Do that. Let's get this going here. Okay, so my name is Linda Miles. I'm a resident in Ward 1, and I'm here today to talk, to invite on behalf of a group called Engaging Residents of Oro-Medonte, or EROM for short. So I'll start by saying good afternoon, good evening to Mayor Greenlaw, Deputy Mayor Lavoie, and to all of our councillors. It's an honor to be speaking to you today, and I thank you for providing me with this opportunity. As I said, my name is Linda Miles, and I've owned a property in Ward 1 for 22 years. I've been a regular visitor to this area, this township, for over 40 years. Today, I am representing EROM. My purpose today is to bring to you and to staff an invitation from EROM to an event we hope will be the first in a series of sessions to encourage residents, members of council, and staff to start thinking differently about how we shape the future of our township. This event is called Reimagining Development in our rural community, Oro-Medonte. When it comes to development in Oro-Medonte, too many times we hear people say, how did this happen? Or how did this ever get approved? When the plans for the development in question were submitted and approved years ago. EROM would like to encourage the people of our beautiful township to focus not on what has happened in the past, but on creating a vision for the future. Oro-Medonte is predominantly a rural community. We all know that it's an incredible special place. Our township has beautiful green spaces, acres and acres of forests and beautiful wetlands, as well as our settlement areas. We are home to one of the most significant moraines in all of Ontario, called the Oro Moraine, affectionately known throughout the province as the little sister of Oak Ridge's moraine. This moraine is a source of high-quality drinking water for a significant percentage of our population in the township. EROM hopes that you agree that our natural heritage needs to be better understood and protected. Just imagine if we used evidence-based research about the Oro Moraine as one of our principles in planning for the future. Development and growth are inevitable, but we're asking you and all interested parties to imagine development in the future differently. Let's take stock of our strengths and start building on those strengths. Let's start a conversation with all the stakeholders in the township about our future. We are asking you to imagine communities where meeting the existing needs, needs of existing and future residents, protecting our natural heritage together with addressing climate change and creating aging-in-place accommodation for seniors and affordable housing are our top priorities when planning for our growth and future. This is going to take a culture shift in our township. Sometimes it's necessary to step back, evaluate what we've done well and what we could have done better in order to get a fresh perspective on how we should move forward. These changes take time, so we need to get started now. Let's start imagining communities where children can safely access green spaces, parks, and playgrounds on foot or by bicycle, rather than having to be driven everywhere. Let's imagine a place where homes are built into the natural surroundings and natural heritage, and communities are connected by trails and walkways rather than busy roads. Imagine communities where people have easy access to businesses, services, adequate recreational facilities, where driving to larger communities to access these services is an option rather than a necessity. Imagine residents being employed in the township or close by rather than having to commute to the GTA for work. Imagine a philosophy of people-centric planning. Why can't we set our expectations this high? Why can't we say that Oro-Medonte is an incredibly special place, and to be part of our township, we are asking you, anyone, to set their standards as high as we have. Our guest speaker on May 5th, Sean Hertel, is a planner who has experience helping communities and municipalities do just that. Sean is a dynamic speaker who passionately believes in the power of sustained community engagement. He believes that being given permission to develop in a municipality is a privilege, not a right. He also believes housing is not just about building homes, it's about people. Sean is a lecturer in the Schools of Planning at the Toronto Metropolitan University, University of Waterloo, and York University. He also knows and loves Oro-Medonte, having lived here in the past. He was asked by an author of an article about himself once, "What do you tell your planning students about demographics?" His answer was, "I tell them we're planning for people, not buildings or infrastructure. It's easy to get lulled into planning for big shiny things and making things look nice. But if things don't work for people, we failed. I tell my students to make things personal, to think of real people when analyzing housing and employment and transportation." Sean's work in the municipality of Saugeen Shores on Lake Huron triggered our interest in his skills and knowledge. If you're interested in listening to a podcast produced by the planning staff interviewing him, please let me know and I'll provide you with that information. Sean will have you thinking out of the box, and we'll be asking you similar questions to the ones I've asked you here today. Sean and Niram would like this to be an interactive session. Please bring your ideas, your really tough questions, and be ready to engage in a conversation about the future and about our processes. The transformation we are suggesting will take time. We will certainly not complete it in one Sunday afternoon, but Niram believes we need to start somewhere. Please join us on May 5th from 1:30 till 4 at the Oro-Medonte Community Center. There's no charge for entry. A donation from the Simcoe County Greenbelt Coalition has allowed us to rent the hall and provide a small honorarium to our speaker. And we have lots of volunteers who are ready to help make this a successful day. Several of our local volunteer groups will also be joining us to provide information about the work they're doing in Oro-Medonte to make it an even better place to live, work, and play. We sincerely hope you and staff will join us on May 5th. Mayor Greenlaw, Deputy Mayor Lavoie, and Council, thank you so much for the privilege of speaking with you today.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Miles. Does anyone have any questions at this time? Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, and thank you.
Well, questions and comments. Sorry, comments, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to express my sincere thanks for organizing this. I mean, I think we all need to think about the contributions that civil society make to our democracy, and people coming forward with new ideas, possibly germinating new activities and new visions for any community and in any fashion are what these undertakings should be about. That's why many of us ran for office, and we hope to see more encouraging community developments like this. So thank you very much, Ms. Miles.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. Okay, so we'll move now to reports of council. Are there any updates?
Mr. Mayor, we do have a motion to accept the deputation.
We're just going to wrap them all up in the end as one big motion. Please.
Moved by Young, seconded by Shell. Be it resolved that the deputation presented by Linda Miles on behalf of engaging residents of Oro-Medonte, EROM, re-event reimagining development in our rural community, Sunday, May 5th, 2024, 2 p.m., Oro-Medonte Community Center, be received.
Thank you. All in favor? That is carried. So now we'll move to item 13, reports of members of council. Are there any updates from the representatives of the County of Simcoe or their township partners? Councillor Schell.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. Through you to council and members of the public. I have a couple here. The Heritage Foundation, we don't have our minutes from the last meeting, but things that were covered there were identifying deadlines for delisting properties, the renaming of the abandoned cemetery. And for those people who don't know where that is, it's on the Old Barry Road, right near the entrance to the waste site. It's on the hill. You can see them as you're driving toward Aurelia. They're talking, Eagles Rest is asking to put a monument there, identifying the Air Force site that was originally there at the beginning. Our book sales are up, and open doors are coming. They'll be announced for the heritage houses that are on the routes. To go along with the medical, really Lake Country doctors retention, they are having, it's coming back. They used to have an open house for high school students to come and find out about becoming a medical doctor. There are 2 tentative dates set for this event, Friday, May the 3rd or Friday, May the 24th. There's a chart that's available to you on their website, or you can contact me if you want that. It's got a great list of items, or a great list of medical possibilities for students to engage in. This here, further report from what they've been looking at is the following. If you follow them on their social media, it was recently posted info about CARMS match day. After the first round, there are 108 unfilled spots in Ontario for family medicine. What does that mean? It means there were spots available, but no one wanted them in the first round. The second match day will be next month, which typically goes out to international medical graduates. 252 family med spots were unfilled across Canada. However, 1,450 spots were filled across the nation. And finally, from the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation, they've put out a news or media release celebrating 30 years of sweet family fun. Community activities at Spring Tonic Maple Syrup Festival held at the Tiffin Center. It's it's April 6th and 7th. The festival will open from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. each day. Admission includes pancake and sausage breakfast with fresh maple syrup and a wide range of family-friendly activities. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. They got a lot of stuff going on for the kids. So bring the families up. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for those updates. Yeah, and it's just talk about the practitioner recruitment. It's a big concern across the province. Family physicians, doctors are retiring, and people aren't coming in and taking up family practices. So hopefully we can find a solution or get those things, those vacancies filled as soon as possible. Any other reports? Not at this time. Announcements? Councillor Young?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is nothing as complicated as taken place before. It's another pancake breakfast at the Carly Community Hall, and this is going to be held on Saturday, April 13th of this year, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. That's the usual pancakes, of course, and sausages and juice, etc., sort of thing. And for those who don't know where Carly Community Hall is, it's on Warminster Road between the 8th and 9th lines. I've gone there every year, and it's put on by volunteers, of course. They're a great bunch of people, and you'll have a good time. As I said, bring the kids as well, the children. And they are prepared to feed you. But like I said, I've gone every year, and it's a chance too to meet your neighbors and the people. So see you there. That's everybody here is invited as well, of course. So
Perfect. Thank you very much, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, to council and members of the public. I just wanted to congratulate the Oro Minor Hockey Association. I apologize, Medonte, but it's technically the Oro Minor Hockey Association on a successful season as it begins to wind down. And a special congratulations to two teams, the U11 Rep D team and the U11 Rep B team, who will be competing in a couple weeks for the All Ontario Provincial Championships, which is fantastic. So all the best to those competing and the rest of them for having a successful season.
Thank you. Any other announcements at this time? So I guess the one thing it's since the Hawkstone Hall has kind of resurrected itself from the ashes, which is fantastic news. This Saturday is their Easter egg hunt at 10:30 a.m. and I think anyone who has kids that would like to come down and partake, it's a great event. It's been going on for many years, and the hall is, I give them, full congratulations on the great work that they've done, because it's vibrant and doing lots right now. And then, in just closing off the announcements, the most important, and although at towards the end, I want to acknowledge that this is CAO Dunn's last official council meeting, as he is moving on to not as exciting chapters as it is being a chief administrative officer in Oro-Medonte. But I want to thank Robin for his many 16 plus years, almost 17 years of service. And it is without a doubt a very, very, very challenging job, where every 4 years you get a new handful of characters, and you have to adapt as best as possible, and we may not always agree, but Robin's always been very professional and listens and gives his viewpoint, but is open and doesn't hold grudges. So I thank you for, at least I don't think you have, but I will say in the 5.5 years I've worked with you, it's been great. I've learned a lot from you, and I don't think you've aged a day. So, I think we must be really good for each other. Now, there will be an event tomorrow night in Barrie at Hooligans which is the old bank, if anyone wants to come and give their best wishes moving forward. I also want to thank and acknowledge Wendy, who has stood beside you and supported you through constantly being dragged away and phone calls coming nonstop over the last 16 plus years. So, and last but not least, I want to say is I really want to thank you on behalf of myself and my colleagues for embracing a brand new council and helping us learn a significant amount through you and the staff that you oversee to embrace this council and in making us the success story I believe we've been to date. So thank you, and all the best wishes moving forward. Okay, so now that we're over the peak, consent agenda. Does anyone want that single item under the consent agenda pulled for discussion, or can we just seeing not, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Hutchison. Be it resolved that the staff recommendations with respect to the item listed under consent agenda correspondence be adopted as printed.
All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. May we have a motion for item 16A, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Young, seconded by Lavoie. Be it resolved that the correspondence dated March 11th, 2024, from Melissa Carruthers, Severn Sound Environmental Association, SSEA, and Bill Thompson, Lake Simcoe Regional Conservation Authority, LSRCA, amendments to South Georgian Bay Lake Simcoe Source Protection Plan, notification of consultation pursuant to Section 34.2 and 34.3 of the Clean Water Act 2006 and Ontario Regulation 287/07 be received, and that Council endorse the proposed amendments to the Township of Oro-Medonte chapters of the Severn Sound, Nottawasaga Valley, and Lake Simcoe Source Protection Area approved amendment report, as well as the South Georgian Bay Lake Simcoe Source Protection Plan outlined in the amendments to South Georgian Bay Lake Simcoe Source Protection Plan, notification of consultation pursuant to Section 34.2, 34.3, and the Clean Water Act 2006 and Ontario Reg 287/07 per the correspondence dated March 11th, 2024, and that the SSEA and LSRCA be notified of Council's decision under the Director of Environmental Services signature.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I take it everyone was listening and heard that, because we're not rereading it. So I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we have one notice of motion being brought forward by Councillor Clark. Now, this will be discussed at the April 10th meeting, so it's not for discussion now, but if Councillor Clark would like to give some clarification on this at this point, please feel free.
I will try to be as short-winded as possible. It's quite a long notice of motion. I think it's just important to provide ample opportunities for the public to comment, specifically in our development services meeting, when they have made comments at a public meeting, to be able to follow up to those prior to a decision being made, which is beyond the minimum requirements of the legislation. So thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. And there's no, because it's just for information, there's no motion. That's an easy one. May we have the motion for the confirmation bylaw, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Hutchison, seconded by Lavoie. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-034, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on Wednesday, March 27th, 2022, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, being engrossed by the clerk, signed and sealed by the mayor.
All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And may we have a motion to adjourn, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Bard, seconded by Young, be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 6:14 p.m.
Okay. Before I call the vote, I want to wish everybody a happy Easter. Have a great and safe holiday with your family and your young ones. And I'll call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much.